and we'll see who joins us. All right, we'll give everyone just a couple minutes to get in.
Okay.
Ooh, that's good. All right. Let's see who we all got. We got a good number of people here. All right. And all right. So let me start off by thanking everyone for joining us today. Let me get the chat open here. Can everybody see us? Any issues seeing us? Everything good there? Everyone can see us, hear us? Yes? Somebody type yes into the chat. Yes. Okay. Chris says yes. Blake, thank you. Thanks everybody for joining us today. This is our, I think, fifth happy hour presentation now. Today I'm fortunate to have Randy Smith with ITT joining us. We're going to talk about ITT's, not their new EnviZion platform, but their EnviZion valve platform, and then some new additions they have to their EnviZion valve platform, specifically the BioviZion and their ISP switch packs, as well as I think, and Randy, correct me if I'm wrong, the PfuZion option to change existing biotech valves to the BioviZion type valve. So with that, I'll tell you guys, I'm drinking a Murkier Waters. This is a double IPA. Oh, you guys can't see it because from a brewery in St. Charles, Illinois. I've heard really good things, so I'm looking forward to it. Randy, I don't know, you got a beer? Or you?
No beer. I'm just drinking water. Just
going with the water. All right.
Just the beer stuff, man.
There you go. You got to wait.
The beer comes later.
Beer comes later. So without further ado, Randy, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to pull the presentation up, and we'll get started. All right.
Okay.
So here we are.
All right. Well, first of all, thanks to Andy and Steve and all the guys from Holland for setting this up. It's my pleasure to be here. I've got plenty of valves. I've got some notes in front of me. I've got a fresh new haircut too, so I'm ready to rock and roll. I hope you are. We've got a lot to cover in a short time, and of course, with diaphragm valves, it'd be great if we were all sitting face to face and sitting at a table, so you can handle the valves, so you can disassemble and reassemble and mix up the parts and lose the bolts. And I don't know how I'm going to get this back together. And you got to have those moments. But with COVID-19, everything has changed. But the goal here today is to introduce you to, or in a lot of cases, reintroduce you to EnviZion and some of our other ITT products, and also allow you to see how EnviZion is different than all the other 4-bolt designs that are out there. So, and guys, I've got to say it's great to have new products, new innovations in the pipeline. Again, we're going to talk about EnviZion, BioviZion, the ISP sensing platform, and PfuZion. And so let's just dive in. And as Andy stated, if you have questions, just use the chat feature, and Andy will buzz you in at that point. Go ahead, Andy.
All right. Let's get to the slide 2. All right.
Okay. Before talking about EnviZion, it's always good to just have a real quick review of our 4-bolt design. The 4-bolt designs, it's been the workhorse of the industry for diaphragm valves for many, many years. There's been very, very few changes in diaphragm technology over the years. They all have a forged body, and I have one. Yeah. That's our forged, or that's our 4-bolt design. Like I said, they all have a forged body with end connections. The picture is butt weld connections. They all have a weir, and a weir is looks like a bridge, and that's what your diaphragm seals against. They have a bonnet flange, and that's where the holes are, and the bonnet attaches to that. And the bonnet is usually, well, it's either a manual bonnet or it's air actuated. And the diaphragm, they're either EPDM only or they are Teflon. Ours is what we call TME. It's TME with the EPDM backing. Those are the most common. And like I said, it's been the workhorse of the industry for many, many years. The only complaint that we've had about the 4-bolt design is the time that it takes to change out the diaphragm. On average, it's about 23 minutes. And I work with a lot of maintenance guys that they love to challenge that. They always say, well, I can take that thing apart in less than 23 minutes. So, and yeah, you can, but there's a steam sterilization cycle that comes into play too that has to be factored into that. And so when you take this thing apart to access the diaphragm, you take your 4 bolts off, you set them aside, you unthread your diaphragm and set it aside. You take another diaphragm, a new diaphragm, you invert it, you twist it into the threaded hole until you hit that hard stop, and then you back it off, and then you put your body in place and you bolt everything down, and you have a torque setting that you have to get it to. And then there's that steam sterilization cycle that pharmaceutical companies require. You steam sterilize at 121 degrees C to kill off any bacterial growth. And so that's how we arrive at the 23 minutes. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration. The other complaint about the 4-bolt design is the inconsistencies with diaphragm installation. I'd mentioned whenever you put your diaphragm in, you turn it till you hit that hard stop and then you back off. And trust me, that hard stop is at a different location with everybody that you talk to. I've seen guys that will hit the hard stop and they'll go another full half turn. And they basically are stripping out the threaded stud that's in the diaphragm. And that leads to what we call point loading. You get little micro cracks in the material, in the diaphragm material, and eventually you have leaks. And then worst case, you're going to have microbial contamination. And that's a problem. Can't have that.
How much faster, Randy, will a diaphragm fail if you're over torquing or point loading?
Oh gosh, you're cutting so many weeks off the life of that diaphragm. I mean, you'll start noticing hairline cracks just in a short time, in a very short time. I mean, when you think about the number of times that diaphragm cycles, and then you're putting another torque on that threaded bolt, I mean, you're making your diaphragm work overtime. And yeah, you are definitely shaving time off of the life of that diaphragm. And granted, if you change out your diaphragms once a year or every 6 months, you might be able to avoid some of that. And again, a lot of it just depends on the number of cycles that you're putting on your valves. But still, you're going to get so much better use of your diaphragms by not over tightening. But worse than that is the potential for contamination.
All right.
It doesn't work well in pharmaceutical plants. I'm not sure why. Go ahead and go to the next slide.
So what did you guys come up with then?
What's that?
So what did you guys come up with? Can you see the next slide? Yep.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to introduce you to EnviZion. And again, this is kind of what we've been wanting to talk about. And but first, before I take this apart, I want to at least give you just a little bit of the history and why we created the EnviZion valve. And basically, it was the voice of the customer, the VOC. We originally sought input from, my goodness, facility engineers, process engineers, reliability engineers, distributors. And we asked, what are your pain points with diaphragm valves? And we listened, and we made improvements, and we repeated the process again. We made our first version of EnviZion, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. And we gave some of them out. We didn't put them on the market for sale right away, but we had customers try them out. And we asked again, how can we improve it? And we listened, we made those improvements, and we repeated the process again. So the final product that we have here, this is a very refined final product. I mean, it's and again, it's been built per customer recommendations, and it's important for us to work with the customers on this and make sure that we create something that's going to work for them.
What major pharmaceutical manufacturers are using this now? I know there have been a number who have kind of adopted it, right?
Yeah. Merck was probably the first. Merck West Point in particular. They started using it in their fermentation suites, and some of the other Merck locations followed suit. And we are now working with some of the Merck animal health companies, and it is spec'd. They spec the EnviZion valve. Pfizer is using it, Genentech, Amgen, Eli Lilly has, they love the EnviZion valve. They absolutely love it. And we're going to talk about some of the other applications for this. I mean, all of those that we mentioned, those are major pharmaceuticals and biopharm companies. But EnviZion, it addresses those two main issues, the diaphragm change out time. You can change this diaphragm in 3 minutes, versus 23 minutes for the 4-bolt design. And then the other issue was the sealing inconsistencies. That old design, involved finding that hard stop. And that's eliminated with this. And when I take this apart, you'll see that. And EnviZion, it addresses those issues, and it has superior performance, reliability. I mean, this valve does not leak, regardless of the process conditions, the high temps, the low temps. It doesn't leak. It's just a good valve.
And you don't need to retorque it, right?
You do not need to retorque it. And we're going to talk about that. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Andy. And I'm going to go ahead and disassemble this. And I don't know how well this is going to play on the screen, but we're going to try it here. First thing you'll notice about this, there's no bolts. The bolts are completely eliminated. This is a completely toolless valve. They're gone. And also, the way you got 2 hand wheels on this top hand wheel, this is just your regular old open close, okay? This is just what you're used to. This lower hand wheel, this is how you access the diaphragm. This is how you open up the valve and get inside. And you'll notice on that hand wheel, there is a spring-loaded pin, and you pull that out and turn it 1/4 turn, and it stays out. That unlocks everything. And then it's just a matter of turning this hand wheel, okay? Now, one thing that I'll tell you, a side note, your upper hand wheel, go ahead and put it in kind of a neutral position, not open, not closed, just neutral. It just gives you room to turn this without this getting in the way. So it's just a matter of turning it counterclockwise, and you will actually feel the valve release. And it's apart just that quick. I mean, it's just, like I said, there's not, you're not having to torque down or take some bolts loose to take this thing apart. This is all done in a toolless way. The 4 bolts, they're replaced by these mushroom head studs, and they are fixed into the body. And the 4 holes, they are replaced with these slots that are machined into this flange here. And another thing that has changed, the weir design, and the picture in this slide kind of shows that. The weir now has what we call a true radius. It is a perfect radius. The old design, it beveled downward and then it would flatten out. So you had these corners. You almost have to see this to appreciate how they look. You have these corners, and if there was ever a leak at all, it would happen down in the corners of that weir. But this is a true radius. And one thing that we did, we made sure that the diaphragm and then also the compressor, and the compressor is the part that is the actual actuated part. Whenever you turn this hand wheel, that's what actually closes down. So your compressor, your diaphragm, and your weir, they all have that same matching contour. And what results is a much more efficient seal. And you can see the EnviZion weir on the right in that slide, and the other weir on the left.
Now, Randy, when you say standard diaphragm valve weir, does that mean the ITT standard or the industry standard? Were there other people using a spherical weir, or was everyone using this kind of trapezoidal design?
Everyone was using the trapezoidal design, and I think there's one other diaphragm company that is now using the spherical weir. Okay. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure who that is, but I think there is someone else that is doing that.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Let's go to the next slide. And this shows the different diaphragms. And the 4-bolt design is on the left. It's rectangular. It's got the 4 bolt holes. The EnviZion diaphragm is on the right. And obviously, these are not interchangeable. They don't look at all alike. But not only is the shape different, but the thickness is also different. The 4-bolt design, because you were forcing the diaphragm down into those corners, it had to be thicker. The EnviZion valve, because of the contours matching, you're able to make it thinner. And so it's, like I said, it's a totally different fit up. And but the biggest difference though is that threaded bolt. On the 4-bolt design, you had that threaded bolt so that you could twist into the top of that and get that hard stop, or reach or try to find that hard stop. With the EnviZion, you actually have a T-clip, and I'm going to go ahead and take this apart. To take the diaphragm out, you go ahead and close the valve, and which I'm doing. The diaphragm is going to raise up whenever you do that. Instead of untwisting it, it is just a quarter turn, and it is out. And the threaded stud has been replaced with this T-clip. It's kind of hard to see in my hand, but you can see it on the screen. It's a bayonet clip, and there is actually a slot that this actually slides into the compressor. So it's a different design, completely different design. Like I said, we've eliminated that threaded stud that we had. Okay. Next slide. Another thing on the body, EnviZion has this 360-degree raised ring, and you can see it in the picture there. So instead of the 4 sealing points at each bolt hole that we had before, you now have this 360-degree seal on the body. And with the 360-degree ring, I mean, there's no media migration outside of that raised bead. Okay. And those are the changes on the body. On the bonnet, we also have a corresponding, it's on the same slide. It's on the same slide, sorry. I didn't show it separate. On the body, you have a 360-degree pressure ring that matches up with the raised bead that's on that body, okay? Those are designed to be the same size on purpose, and then the diaphragm sits in between those. And that's what the valve works against whenever you're opening and closing the valve with the diaphragm. You're working against that pressure ring. It keeps the offset pressure on the body of the valve itself. Okay. Now what you don't see with the body, there is a chamber that's up inside of this body here, and in that chamber we have what we call Belleville washers. And Belleville washers, I don't know if you're familiar with those. Think of a flat washer, and then you bevel them. And we put 2 of those down below this pressure ring, and they act like springs. They act like springs, and what they do is they keep a constant live load on this pressure ring. Okay, and now where does that come into play? Think about, we were talking about steam sterilization. When you steam sterilize, it causes material to grow, and then you have to go back and retorque to get everything back to where it needs to be. Well, with the constant live load, the springs will adjust to the temperature variations, and it will adjust, and with that, you don't have to go back and retorque. I mean, as the material grows from the higher temperatures, those springs bring everything back in order. They work almost like shock absorbers. So to your point, Andy, no need to retorque. It's not necessary. And again, as soon as you get your valve put together, there's no retorque necessary. You can go right into, you do your steam sterilization and rock and roll. Get going again.
Question from the peanut gallery, Randy.
Okay.
Ken Kimbrell asked, what materials of construction are available on the body?
On the body, of course, 316L is your standard, but you can also get a C22 Hastelloy and AL6XN.
Okay.
Nothing more exotic outside of those 3.
But one thing that is, I guess, a little unique is that for a diaphragm material, only Teflon is available. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
And then, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right. With EnviZion, well, with all your 4-bolt designs, we offer the EPDM only or the Teflon with the EPDM backing. But with EnviZion, we elected to just go with the Teflon and the EPDM backing. And the main reason, I'm going to guess 90% of the requests that we have on diaphragms were the EPDM, I'm sorry, the Teflon with the EPDM backing. So it didn't make just a whole lot of sense to go ahead and offer the EPDM when we knew that the majority of the market, that's what they would want. So that's why we elected to do that.
Here's a question actually from Keith. Keith asks, how will the valve seal in the fully open max PSI position?
How will it seal?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it will seal without any issues at all.
Mm-hmm. Have you guys done leak testing with these valves?
Oh, of course,
Yeah.
of course.
And isn't there a BPE section for a section J or something for
there
that?
is. Yes. And we have all the testing data that we will be happy to supply with any of that. I tell you, ITT, we do a lot of internal testing ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, prior to before going to BPE for their testing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we passed that, of course, and then we have done all the BPE testing that go along with that as well.
All right.
And like I said, that's information that we are happy to share with whoever would request it.
Very good.
Okay. Let's go to the next slide. I'm not going to go through all the bullet points. We mentioned the weir, the backing cushions, the Belleville washers. A couple other things that I'll add to those bullet points. I'll let you read those as you need to. The size range on EnviZion is a little bit different than our 4-bolt design. Our 4-bolt design, we go from 1/2 inch up to 4-inch size. With EnviZion, we go from 1/2 inch up to 2 inch. And we have talked about going with a 3-inch and a 4-inch, but right now the up to 2 inch handles the largest part of our market. And so far it has not become an issue at all. When the times that people have asked for a 3 and 4 inch, we've used our pure flow design. And like I said, so far it hasn't been a problem. And of course, the valve that we're looking at here, this is a manual valve. These do come in an air actuated. I mean, that's what you're seeing in the picture here. As far as the different valve models that we offer, of course, this is your 2-way valve, but we offer EnviZion in all of the different ITT models that we have, your zero statics, your ISGs, your divert valve, sterile access, even your tank bottom valves. You can get the EnviZion bonnet with that as well. Okay. One other thing that I will show you, and this was another voice of the customer item. We had some customers with the early releases of the EnviZion valve. We had this pin just out here by itself, and we had enough people ask, what would keep an unauthorized person just from walking by and pulling that pin and unlocking it and just doing whatever they wanted. And so what we did, we made a cap. It's what we call an EBG. It's a tamper-resistant bonnet guard, and basically it twists onto the outside of the pin. And now, does it keep someone from messing with it? No. I mean, you know, if anything, it just serves as a deterrent. It's an extra step that hopefully someone will just leave it alone and not think they need to go in and open that. So basically, it keeps unauthorized people from pulling the pin, and also it covers the pin. And there's a way that you can lock this and make it to where you have to use like a flathead screwdriver to open it. Okay.
Can I get the EnviZion valve with the Legacy Advantage actuator?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. It comes standard with the stainless steel actuator that you see in the picture, but just here in the last, I don't know, in the last year, I guess, we're now offering the old Advantage actuator in place of the stainless steel. Cost-wise, they're pretty much the same, but it is available. All right, I'm going to reassemble. When you reassemble the EnviZion valve, again, you've got a slot that's in the compressor now, and you have a T-clip, and it's just a matter of placing the T-clip inside of that slot, and it's just 1/4 turn, and you will see there's a recess built into that flange, and now it's just a matter of opening the valve, which will drop the diaphragm into place. Make sure things are lined up, and you don't want to overdo it. You want to keep it concave if you can, okay? And then it's just a matter of lining up the bonnet with the body, and just a little turn, it's ready to go. And what you want to do now, instead of having the pin pulled out, you want the pin back in. Go ahead and open up your top hand wheel, and then it's just a matter of turning it. And you'll notice the sound, the clicking, it's ratcheting. You know you're closing it when you hear that ratcheting. And then there's that age-old question, well, how far do we turn this thing? Well, we've taken the guesswork out. You turn it, and when you hit that, we just hit it, it's done. It hit that stop. There's a detent pin hole arrangement in there, and it falls into place, and it's ready to go into service. I mean, again, it takes all the guesswork out of it completely. It just drops in place, and it's done.
What was the record? I know at Interfex for a few years running, you guys were having like a race to see who could do it the fastest. What was the fastest somebody ever
it was down around 2 minutes. It was down around 2 minute range. I'm not sure who got it and what the exact number was, but yeah, you can. I mean, it's amazing how much quicker it is to disassemble and reassemble that.
Wow, that's crazy.
Regarding target applications, if you want to call it that, EnviZion, it works well for almost all of the pharmaceutical processes, whether it's fermentation or filtration, media prep, all the different high purity water applications. But I tell you, it really hits the mark whenever you're looking at high temperature extremes. I'll give you an example: blood fractionation. If you work with plants that do that, your process may start at 90 degrees C, and it may cool down to 5 degrees C in an hour. And so you have a thermal shock that you're going to be working with, and then just the extreme cold alone, I mean, that just kills diaphragms. It just absolutely kills them. And that extended duration, it just creates sealing issues with your 4-bolt design. And I'll go ahead and say it: you're going to have leaks. You just are. I mean, that's just part of it. EnviZion does very, very well with temperature extremes, and you think about it with the what we call the thermal compensation system, which is those Belleville washers. There's no need to retorque as the temperatures change, and it like I said, it works well for that. It works very well for that. So temperature extremes, they're less of an issue with EnviZion than what you find with your 4-bolt design. So next slide.
I think I went backwards.
There you are. So in summary, EnviZion has allowed us to differentiate our offering, and so far we're the only one that has a toolless diaphragm valve. So I want to introduce you to BioviZion.
Randy, I did want to make one point of an application that we had where we found EnviZion to be a really good fit. I think this has to do getting back to the weir design, with being the spherical type weir design. We actually built a skid, and it was a low working volume skid, and we found that the holdup volume in an EnviZion valve was actually lower than the holdup volume in a pure flow valve. So really? We were able to save. We were able to get the customer. The mandate from the customer was to create the lowest possible working volume, and we were able to get another couple of mLs out of the system by using EnviZion versus using a standard
pure flow
valve. Yeah. So
good to know. I was not aware of that.
Yeah, and we measured it here. We had the graduated cylinders. We were pouring them into the valve, seeing how much they'd hold, how much they drain. So. I don't think that's something that you guys really market, but it was something that we anecdotally found, and it's driven a couple of projects since then.
Cool. Glad to hear that. Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing that. BioviZion, I want to introduce you to that. BioviZion, and I just happen to have one with me right here, this little guy. This is one of our new fractional valves. And it's a fractional valve that has the EnviZion technology that's built right into it. Okay. And by fractional, this covers sizes 0.25, 1/4 inch up to 1/2 inch. So these are little. And, the whole purpose of a fractional valve is it's for low flow applications and sampling. These are very popular in skids. I mean, space is such a premium with a skid, and these have pretty small, footprints. And again, because it's completely toolless with the EnviZion, installation's a whole lot easier. It has the T-clip design on the diaphragm instead of the threaded, so there's no guessing on the hard stop. But again, this is our newest fractional valve entry that has the EnviZion technology. Let's go to the next slide, and you can see the differences in size between it. And these are all manual valves. Our EnviZion is shown on the left. Right next to it is the new BioviZion. And then next to that is the Biotech and the BioPure. Those are our original fractional valves. Both of those are 4-bolt designs. And those are still available. Keep in mind, those are still available. They have not been obsoleted. And there's still a lot of those in service. But the BioviZion, that's the newer technology. That's has the EnviZion technology. Let's click again, Andy. This next slide. Oh, go ahead and go to the next slide.
There we go. Sorry about that.
There we go. No worries. This is the same comparison with the actuators instead of the manual hand wheels. The BioviZion, well, the EnviZion is on the far right and working from right to left. Next, the BioviZion, and then the Biotech and the BioPure.
These are overall heights, right?
Yes. And regarding flow rates, there's very slight differences. I mean, these are very small valves, and there's very slight differences in each of the different models. And we have the CV rates listed in our catalog. And that's with all of our valves. We got the CV rates. If you need that kind of information, we certainly have that. Next slide. This kind of shows some of the target applications for BioviZion. And the picture on the top right was a transfer panel application. I mean, they're perfect for BioviZion. This was a project where we ended up adding a couple of zero static valves on the inlet and outlet header of a transfer panel, basically. And the jumpers are used for transferring process fluid through the piping. And as they change processes, they have to drain off the residual fluids. And these valves that we put in place, they were zero static. So you had your process flow on the run, and then with the drop, we used the BioviZion valve to drain the fluid. And BioviZion was selected because of its smaller size and the ease of the diaphragm change out, and it just made the entire process much easier. Also with BioviZion, we've used these on a lot of what we call travel valves. Most of the skids that we see, the valves are welded solid, but there's always a few valves that are just clamp type. And those valves are used they use them all over their plants, like whenever they're doing some of their cleaning process. And BioviZion works well for those travel valves. And they also are used a lot on transfer kettles or portable tanks and vessels and that sort of thing.
There's just two things I'd like to add, Randy, to this, based on some applications that we've seen. Obviously, having these sample valves in place after the jumper is a safety concern, and one thing that's very important is that people are able to get 100% closure and shut off, right? You don't want any leakage. The BPE guidelines actually say that a radial sealed diaphragm valve or a weir type diaphragm valve is the only type of valve approved for these kind of applications. So there are a number of other people who make like a zero static sample valve that's like a plunger type valve that is not in accordance with the latest BPE recommendations. And then also a place that something that we've seen that we've done here on our end is modifying these actuators so that they can take a trigger or a pull type handle with 100% positive closure, so
Yes.
that you can use it as a sample type valve. So those are some sort of options that are available.
Huh.
One other thing that I was talking with your colleague, a place where he sees BioviZion and EnviZion used a lot, where his real sweet spot has been, and something for people to keep in mind. Everyone today is talking about, or a lot of people in the pharmaceutical space today is talking about single-use technologies, and we're seeing a lot of these facilities that are they bill themselves as 100% single use. Well, the reality is they still have a water system. Most of them still have a WFI system in the facility.
That's right.
And what they don't have as much of the historical stainless steel plants is maintenance staff or trained maintenance staff. And the EnviZion and BioviZion valves are really, really good fits for those kind of facilities where they need to be able to obviously, they're still going to service the valves, but they need to do so with probably less technical personnel, right? Maybe having a generalist repair the valve or change the diaphragm than a repair technician or something like that.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I know that's where Tom Foudy said he's any single-use facility he sees is a really good place to use these valves, just because of how easy it is to change out the diaphragms on.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's jump to the next slide. We're going to talk a little bit about a new product that we have. This is what we call our integrated sensing platform. We call it the ISP. And this was newly released, I think in April. So it's our latest innovation, and it has similar functions as a switch, but it does a little bit more. And I'll share this with you. It's the first switch that carries the ITT name. We've used all third-party switches in the past, but this is the first one that actually has our name on it. So a little bit different approach this time. A basic switch, as most of you know, it provides what we call positional feedback. It basically lets the operator know that your valve is open or closed. And the way it works, it mounts up on top of the actuator like the picture shows here. You've got your EnviZion valve, you've got a stainless steel actuator, and then you've got your ISP. So it mounts on the actuator, it reads the actuator, and then it sends a signal to a computer monitor, typically in a control room, and basically stating that the valve is open or closed. Next slide. And it also provides visual indication. We have high visibility LED lights that are built into the enclosure. And if the valve is open, the lights are green. If it's closed, the lights are red. And by the way, this can be reversed too real easily. It's per customer preference. And the way it was explained to me, in Europe, when the valve is open, typically the lights are red, and when it's closed, they're green. It's just the opposite. But you can change that back and forth real easy with this ISP. And there's a ton of features. And in fact, I tell you, I'm doing ISP a disservice. I'm covering the ISP with 4 slides. You could do a 2-hour presentation just with this ISP. So we're just going to breeze go through it pretty fast. I'm just going to cover just a few of the features and benefits. And but the small footprint, that's one of the first things that you notice about this thing. I mean, this thing is roughly 1 1/4 inches tall, and but we're gonna cover that with the next slide. The ISP has automatic calibration. It will adjust automatically to find your open and closed targets. There's not any manual adjusting that you have to do. The electronics, they are fully potted. They're completely sealed. No moisture can get in. There is an internal solenoid that's built right in. It's not some bulky external device that's bolted to the switch. It's all internal. Also, you can override the solenoid with what we call a dongle. And the dongle is the yellow thing that's shown on the picture there. And I've got one in my case, but it's a magnetic device. There's a place on the ISP where you just press that, and like I said, you can override that solenoid, or you can use the phone app. And and I said it. There's a phone app that goes with this. It's a Bluetooth option, diagnostic option, and it allows you. I mean, you can download it onto your phone, and like I said, with that you can override the solenoid. Also, the phone app, you can view whether your valve is open or closed. I've got it on my phone, and if I can work the thing, then I mean it's just that simple. And then last, on the phone feature, there is a wink function. For example, if you're in a suite, pharmaceutical suite, and you've got 20 valves out here on the floor, or 20 valves in a skid assembly next to a tank, and you need to locate your particular valve, you just press that wink feature right on your phone, and it will start flashing, saying, "Here I am." I mean, it's a pretty slick deal. And like I said, the ISP, it does a whole lot more than your typical switch. And like I said, I'm not an electronics guy, and I can't talk real deep on the electronics, but with an ISP, like I said, I'm probably doing it a disservice just with what little bit I'm telling you. There's a ton of information with this. Let's go to the next slide. This basically just shows the how small this thing is. I mean, the A dimension shows the height, and it ranges from 1.2 to roughly 3 inches with some of the bigger valves. You've got your length times width dimensions. It's roughly 3 inches wide by 4 inches long. I mean, it's ultra compact. Most switches are at least 5 inches tall, and that makes it difficult when you're trying to install in a small skid. So,
As a skid builder, I can tell you that it's something people don't think about, but it makes a big difference.
Yes. Ask a skid builder, ask a pipe fitter, any operator, they'll tell you. And it's the old the overused metaphor, less is more.
And Randy, this is available for both EnviZion, BioviZion, as well as the Legacy PureFlow.
It is. It works for all of the different models that we have. And go to the next slide, and I can show you how we do that. There is a mounting flange that we can supply, and you can mount your ISP onto any actuator that we have. I mean, and I say any actuator, your stainless steel piston style, your Advantage, and all the different sizes that there are. We have a mounting flange that will couple those together, and we supply those. Those are not a problem at all.
Well, let's say I got a plant that's mixed. I got a bunch of ITT valves, I got a bunch of Saunders valves, I got a bunch of GAMU valves, but I really love the ISP. Can I put the ISP onto those valves?
Oh, you can. Yeah. Yep. It will read those. It will automatically read those and make adjustments. And yes, you can, to answer your question.
Okay, that's interesting.
It won't prevent those other brands from leaking. That's another problem, Andy.
Got it.
Kidding, of course. Let's go to the next slide. And that's another thing I wanted to mention. The ISP doesn't replace the old ITT switches. I mean, the VSP, the VSP Plus, the SP2 switches, those are still available. There's a ton of those out there, and we are going to continue to provide those and provide replacement parts, just so you're aware. One other thing with the ISP, there is what we call a spec generator tool. For those of you who've been around a while, they work like the old configurator for valves, and it's an online feature that we have, and you can go to our website to get that if you need that. It helps you in sizing, getting the right ISP, and I think that's it.
What sort of communication options are there?
if you're looking for like a network bus, your Aussie Link and DeviceNet, those are what we have available.
Mhm.
As far as the output options, the 3-wire is what we are selling right now, and
Mhm.
it allows for the LED lighting, and it has the auto calibration. Like I said, those are available now. The Aussie Link network bus is available now. We are designing a 2-wire, and that works more like a mechanical switch, and it doesn't have the juice that the 3-wire does, but we have to offer that as an option. That is coming third quarter, and then the DeviceNet network bus, that's also coming third quarter.
How about uh, for XP applications or Class 1 Div 1 applications? Do you guys have this available for those classified environments yet?
Andy, I don't know. I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure on that. I'll get you an answer.
Okay. Yeah, just curious because that does come up from time to time. I know we recently did a couple of systems for GSK, and we used a bunch of ITT valves. They all had switches on it. We actually used Stonell switches, which I think is sort of a cousin to this switch platform.
Yes.
We did use some XP options. So I would imagine that while you guys may not have it yet because it's a little bit newer, that it's probably not too far behind, especially if you're working on a 2-wire option. So
Yeah.
how about voltages available? 24 volt and 120 volt, just 24 volt?
No, all the above.
All the above.
All the above. And
Okay.
you mentioned Stonell. Stonell is our what we call our branding partner on this.
Mhm.
So yeah, we work with them on this, and like I said, they are our branding partner.
Mhm. So Stonell's a great company. We do a lot of work with them, and
They are a great company. They definitely are. They're great guys. They really know what they're doing.
Mhm.
All right, next slide. This is the last item that we're going to cover. We're almost there.
You're almost there, and you're doing great on time. You got about
Oh, good.
12 to 4.
Okay. And like I said, this is our last item, and it's last primarily because it is not launched yet to the public. This is what we call PfuZion. Not to provide any confusion, but what it is, and we're going to go back to the BioviZion. When you present BioviZion to a customer, the most common statement or feedback that you get from the customer is, I like your BioviZion. However, I have several of your old biotech valves that are already welded in place, and financially I can't justify cutting them all out. And the question that typically follows, can I mount a BioviZion bonnet onto an existing biotech body? And previously the answer was no. Well, with PfuZion, with the whole purpose of this PfuZion design is so that answer will become yes. In other words, PfuZion allows us to retrofit, and this is a big deal because, like I said, a lot of people have our biotech valves in place, and before they wanted the new technology, but it just didn't make sense to cut it all out. So now you will be able to retrofit those.
And I will say, Randy, at least from our standpoint, and maybe this speaks to the broader market as well, yeah, we'll do big projects with the pure flow valve, right? And there'll be 100 valves, but the biotech valve is something that, we have customers who are ordering 10, 15, 20 of pretty regularly, just because they're
Yes.
going into these really simple sampling applications, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And
Yes.
I think that yeah, replacing all those doesn't always make as much sense, right? It's not
Yeah.
as big of a project. Yeah. So
Yeah. And the way this works, this is basically a flow chart. Start in the upper left, and you've got your existing biotech valve, and you go ahead and remove the top works, the bonnet, remove the bolts, remove the diaphragm, and you're left with just the biotech body. Now go to the arrow on the left, and to convert it or to retrofit, you take the biotech body, you add the PfuZion studs, and you you add the PfuZion diaphragm, and now you can fit up your BioviZion on top of that. And you know, it's a pretty simple transition. And now, you know, with the BioviZion, you now have a toolless design. You got the quick diaphragm change out. You got your existing biotech body in place, and like I said, now you have the new technology. Let's go to the next slide. And again, PfuZion basically allows you to retrofit. And this slide, it basically shows you some of the PfuZion parts and how they're kind of custom to the PfuZion design. A little bit different than EnviZion. I mean, on the left there, you've got your manual bonnet, basically your bonnet flange, and you've got the slots. And with BioviZion, I'm sorry, with PfuZion, the slots go all the way through the flange. You know, with EnviZion, they would go just maybe halfway through. With PfuZion, they go all the way through. The BioviZion flange, it's thinner, so it's easier to go completely through, but functionality, it works the same. Also, the PfuZion pressure ring, which is shown up at the top right, it's oblong instead of round, and that's what mounts within the bonnet, presses against the diaphragm. Also, the diaphragm is oblong as well to match the pressure ring. So a little bit different design, but you know, you're marrying two different designs, and that's what's necessary to make that work. Go to the next slide. And this is another item that I wanted to reach out to you and others. We have what we call a PfuZion program. PfuZion is not yet released to the public. It's not for sale. We have completed all of our in-house testing. However, we are going to be conducting beta testing with customers and clients at their site. And that's just something that we typically do with a lot of our products. And it's important that our products work within the operating conditions of a pharmaceutical suite. And that's why we do that. So we're reaching out to customers that already have biotech valves in place, they have them in operation, and we want to identify any problem areas or issues with those valves. And what we would do with this beta testing, we would provide all the PfuZion hardware, the diaphragms, the BioviZion bonnets for testing. There's no cost to the customer whatsoever. And then also we supply what they call a qualification test. And basically it's a summary. It spells out some of the test criteria, you know, the design conditions, the high and low temps, durations, flow rates, you know, that sort of thing. And,
what are the biggest issues you guys have seen with biotech in the field that, you know, people, if they're having this problem, they may want to consider PfuZion?
The biggest problem that we've seen with biotech, the biotech valve, it's a 4-bolt design, and it uses that threaded stud, which is the old PureFlow design. It uses that threaded stud. The problem is, because it's a fractional valve, the thicknesses are real small. It's a pretty thin diaphragm, and when you steam that, there's times where when you go to open the valve, you get a vacuum basically, and if you're not careful, you can rip the threads right out of that diaphragm. And we've seen it time and time again, and as a result, the BioviZion kind of solves that problem completely, because it goes away from that threaded design. You got that T-clip instead of that, and like I said, it's just a better design. But that's been the main problem area that we've had with that biotech. I mean, for the most part, they're pretty substantial, but that's an area where we have seen some issues. So again, we're looking for partners for beta testing. If you're interested, let me know or let Andy know through this video. And I think at the end, I'll give my email address. And like I said, if you're interested in that, let us know. Benefits to the customer, you know, BioviZion is going to extend the life of your biotech valve. the performance is going to be better, and you're going to basically reduce the total cost of ownership. Benefits to us, it provides us with performance data, and it allows us to refine the existing valve with BioviZion, and plus it allows us to check for wear patterns and make improvements, in the valve if we need to. So again, if there's any interest, just let me know through my email. One more slide, Andy. I think we've made it, man.
We made it.
We made it. So again, I want to thank Holland and the guys. Where is Steve at? Steve Joy, is he on the call?
Steve is on. I believe he's on. Yep, Steve's on.
Okay, cool. What's up, Steve? And I also want to thank everyone on the line. And if you have more questions, just send them through there, and we'll see if we can get answers to you.
And I would like to thank everyone else who joined us today as well. It's 4 p.m. on a Friday. The sun's out, at least here. Hopefully it is everywhere else.
It is here.
I'm looking forward to getting outside, and I hope everybody enjoys their weekend. Any other questions? Oh, looks like we got a couple of questions from the chat. Oh, Steve says hi.
Hey, Steve.
But any other questions from the crowd? I know I have a couple of questions to close myself.
Fire away.
Well, all right. So one thing we didn't really talk too much about, Randy, and I'm the host, so I get to ask the hard pointed questions. How about price? None of this stuff is free. Is there a premium for it? If so, what is the premium?
Well, of course they're free, Andy. I've got 3 or 4 of them in my car. You want me to just mail them to you? What do you want? What do you want?
I'm not sure you're going to have a job for a whole lot longer.
This sales thing is easy, man. Just ship them. No, the EnviZion valves are anywhere from 25 to 30% higher than our standard pure flow design. Mm-hmm. And of course, we look at the total cost of everything. We look at the time savings and the technology and that sort of thing. But depending on the size of valve that you get, 25 to 30%, you can pretty much count on that.
How about for like ISP? How is ISP priced relative to other switch packs in the marketplace?
It's slightly higher. It's probably in the 40% range higher than some of your other designs that are out there. And I've got you've seen our price sheets. I can give you some specifics if you need specifics.
But I think what the important takeaway is that while it is priced at a premium, the biggest thing to think about is the total cost of ownership over the long run. And what we've seen with our customers who have gone to this is the time savings for changing out these valves. I mean, just to kind of give you a ballpark idea, I used to think we were real expensive, but it seems like most people are billing their labor. I don't care if you're a car mechanic, a plumber, or you're fabricating stainless steel piping. Our labor is going to be in about the $100 to $110 per hour range. Mm-hmm. So if for every 3 diaphragms we change out, we save an hour, that means we save $100. And if we're changing out a couple, maybe 300 valves, that's going to be a huge savings that adds up over time. We have a number of customers that we're doing annual change outs at for diaphragms. And I know the guys who are changing those valves wish they had EnviZion because it would make their lives a whole lot easier, between losing hardware, dropping hardware, things like that.
That's right.
And then, also with as it relates to ISP, the ability to shrink down the skid space, right, to build tighter, more compact skids. There is a huge premium to the square footage in the places where these systems go. And to have a low profile design switch pack that can allow us to bring these skids in, shrink them even tighter is a huge benefit to us. Absolutely. And is also, standardizing, right? If we can use this switch pack on, again, we're an ITT dealer, but we see facilities that have a skid with Camus valves or a skid with Saunders valves. And to be able to standardize on the switch technology across the platform and do it in a low profile way that won't interfere with other sort of piping constraints is a real advantage to some people. So, I think that while it is priced at a premium, if people look at the long-term payback of it, there is a really strong case to be made for EnviZion, BioviZion, PfuZion, as well as the ISP switch. So.
Yes. Yes.
All right. And then I guess my last question is, Randy, what's going on the grill this weekend?
Tri-tip, baby.
Tri-tip. There you go.
Tri-tip.
That's
That's my go-to. That's my go-to.
What kind of grill you got?
I've got the big green egg.
You got the green egg. All right. I'm a Kamado Joe guy, but the green egg's a great grill. So you gonna smoke it, or are you just gonna go? You're gonna go slow and steady, or you're gonna do a high sear? What are you gonna do? How are you gonna cook it?
Well, I've been experimenting with that high sear. That's pretty slick. I mean, you go ahead and sear it, and then you kind of cover it up and let it smoke for 3 hours, and you're good.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a good way to go.
Have you ever done the reverse sear where you like? One thing that I like to do. Do you have a gasser? Do you have a gas grill?
I used to.
One thing that I like to do every now and then is, you do a reverse sear. So one of the nice thing about cooking on one of those ceramic cookers is you can get the temperatures real low. So you can cook it at 200, 300 degrees for the whole cook. You can bring it up to, I usually like to let it go to about 115, 120 degrees on the internal. And then, I'll get my gas grill going, or even get a hot cast iron pan or something, right? Put down some oil or something. And then as soon as you hit that 115 range, you throw it over into the cast iron, you put some color on it, you let it rest for 10 minutes, and away you go. Here we go. Nice. Ken Kimbrell, Kamado Joe, baby. That's what I'm talking about. That's the red one, man. That's what I'm all about. So
I almost bought one of those. I was that close to getting the Kamado Joe.
Yeah.
They make a great product too.
They make a good one too. Any of those ceramic cookers, they're a lot of fun. They're a little more work than a gas grill, but they're a lot of fun. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone again for joining. And we got some more feedback from Brian, and actually I'll attest to this too. So Brian, who's one of our engineers, says sous vide then searing is real good. That is awesome too. It's not as much fun in the summer because
what is it?
Sous vide, it's an indoor sport. Basically, you get a hot water bath, and then you use an immersion cooker, right? So you put it on the outside.
Yes,
it's a little centrifugal pump that also heats, and it lets you do a really, really low temp. So you set it to 120, 125 degrees, and you cook real slow for a long period of time. You get these really tender cuts, and then you throw it onto the then you throw it onto the grill and just sear it off, which is really nice. Ken Kimbrell, I knew I liked Ken, says I did corned beef brisket sous vide for 48 hours. So it's a 48-hour cook. Sous vide infusing whiskey also slips under the radar. Okay, so we're getting feedback from all over the place. I think our next webinar, Randy, we might have to do. It's just dedicated to.
Hey, I think we need it.
And all of our different
invites from Ken Kimbrell to come eat at his house to test some
right? That's right. So, all right, everybody. Thanks again. Lots of fun. I appreciate everyone joining us. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact Randy or myself. And
thanks, Andy.
We hope to see you on the next one. Thanks again, guys. Have a good day.
You too.